Welcome to HomeWord. I'm Jim Burns. Today is another Just Jim. I'm actually pumped about this one. We're going to talk about finding joy in the empty nest, discover purpose and passion in the next phase of your life. Now, by the way, if you're not in the empty nest, you may need this more than anybody else, because what I found when I wrote the book, Finding Joy in the Empty Nest, by the way, this is what the book looks like. I love this book. I even love the color of this book, but I love the content more. I wrote it during COVID. But anyway, what I find is that most people who enter the empty nest without any preparation whatsoever. And I think Kathy and I were a little bit like that. So here's the phrase: get ready for something new. Because when you enter the empty nest, it is something new. On the drive home from dropping our youngest daughter, Heidi, off at Cal Poly, we became empty nesters. And so busy week at Cal Poly, getting her set, going to some parent things, and going to Target 100 times, spending much more money than I thought. And then we get in the car to leave. We give her a hug. There were a little bit of tears. And I think Heidi was saying, let's get going. We get in the car, and I realized we had not spoken to each other for almost 90 minutes. We were in our thoughts. I was already missing Heidi. I look over at Kathy to see if she wanted to stop for lunch in Santa Barbara. So she was at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That's in Central California. And we love lunch in Santa Barbara. And I noticed that there's a tear running down her cheek. And I said, "You okay, babe?" And she goes, "Yeah, no, I'm okay." And I said, "Are you, do you want to stop for lunch?" And she goes, "No, I just want to get home." And what I realized was she was going through grief, okay? Kathy, and myself too, and we'll talk about it in a moment, was entering what I'd call a new phase of life, kind of knew everything. I mean, even in a new stage in our marriage was going to happen because, again, we weren't focused on the kids anymore. We were focused on them, obviously, but we weren't focused in the house. So there were some issues. Maybe we had even put under the mat. She was the center of our family in so many ways. I like to say that she was the sun, and she had 3 planets revolving around them. That would be our daughters. She had a 4th planet showing up, at home. So, all of a sudden now there's no planets, and she's lost her way. She's thinking in her mind, now what? What's next? Stuff like that. But we weren't saying this verbally, okay? But we get home that day, and we sit at the kitchen table. We had been to 9 years of football games because our kids were involved in cheer, and so we went to the games. And the game is on, the school's right by our house, so we could hear the, what's going on with the score and all the announcements and all that. And she looks up at me and she goes, "Should we go to the game after the second half?" Well, we're kind of done with that now. But for Kathy, it was hard to give it up. You know what? It became hard for me to give it up also. So I love this scripture, and this scripture helped me get through into the empty nest. It says, and it's found in Isaiah 43:19, "Be alert, be present. I'm about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? There it is." And we've got to look at our empty nest experiences like that. And I want to give you some principles today. Principle number 1, when your child leaves home and their life fills up with fresh experiences, follow their lead, okay? Because a lot of times people get stuck and they fill their life with more stuff, if you would, but they don't improve their life. They don't find joy in the empty nest. I found when I was writing the book, Finding Joy in the Empty Nest, I would do, let's say, I think I did 19 group meetings where I would ask people how they did. I would say it was half and half. Half people said it's great. Half the people said it's the hardest thing I've ever done. We're not doing well. Okay. I mean, I even remember writing in my journal about my daughters, which this was one of the things that drove me nuts about being a parent. But I wrote, "I miss their mess. I miss their noise. I miss their rudeness and neediness. I miss their laughter. I miss my place in their life. Who am I, and what do I do with the rest of my life?" That summed up my life, but it probably summed up, a lot of people's lives right there. So change and loss are deeply connected. I found that out in the empty nest. So there's something that I write a book about in Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. I call it the empty nest syndrome. And in research, this syndrome showed up everywhere when I was looking at the empty nest syndrome. And unfortunately, it often coincides with losses like dealing with your own parents, or sickness or death, or retirement, or singleness and deep loneliness, and loss of friendships, and financial stress, and kids who are violating values. It shows up there when it comes to the empty nest. It's all of that and more sometimes. So typically, the empty nest syndrome sneaks up on us. And I believe that Kathy had the empty nest syndrome, and part of her syndrome with dealing with this was some maybe even light depression or anxiety about, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I didn't think I did until I realized, wait, I go to work earlier, I stay later. So the way I dealt with my empty nest syndrome issues was different than the way Kathy did, right? One woman said when my son left, she was a single mom. When my son left, I spent the entire week eating more ice cream than I had ever done. I would eat a whole half gallon of ice cream every night and watch TV and cry. Well, I get that. You got to do that maybe for a little bit, but then you got to move on, right? So I want to give you what I call the empty nest syndrome quiz. I created this for people, and it really has been helpful for them. On a scale from 1 to 5, I'm going to say this. By the way, you could go to HomeWord.com and you could get the empty nest syndrome quiz, or you could buy the book and it's in there. But here's questions for you. I want you to answer these. I have experienced a sense of loss in the empty nest. Okay, on a 1 to 5. 1, it's not so bad. 5, it's like horrendous, right? Number 2, I have experienced a lack of purpose in life since my kids left. 1 to 5. I often feel deeply alone. I have felt depressed or anxious more often now that my kids are gone and I'm in the empty nest. Okay, good question. I sometimes feel like my best years are behind me. I am too often preoccupied with my absent children's safety and welfare. Okay, how you do on that from a 1 to 5? If you got all 5s, you're not doing well. If you get all 1s, well, then you're probably doing it really well. We're usually somewhere in the middle. But again, this is just kind of a way of helping us. If that's what you're experiencing, then you got to meet Patricia and Toby, and I'm going to introduce you to somebody else as well. What I'm going to call is what they did was reboot and reconnect. Now, the next person I'm going to introduce you to is a single empty nester, but Patricia and Toby married. They needed to reboot their relationship. They needed to reconnect. They actually, and sometimes when you do that, you clean out and declutter the closets. I get it. So decluttering is a lot of this. But also what they did, and it was all simple things. She joined a women's group at her church. She hadn't been involved in a women's group. She joined it. They committed to a weekly date night because when the kids were teens and still living in the house, there wasn't a date night going on. And so they recommitted to that weekly date night. It was really good. Toby decided, well, I think with Patricia's help, to redo the backyard. So, there was a project there. They decided to connect regularly with the kids and visit monthly when invited. So, and that worked. So connect regularly was, there were regular calls, regular times, but they were, giving their kids the passport to adulthood and not having them, come to them at all moments. But they had to reinvent the relationship with their kids. So that's the things they did that were practical. Isabella, single mom, she tried new things. Okay, now I know Isabella. She's somewhat of an introvert. It was hard for her to do this stuff, but she had to plan new activities because she was a single mom, and when her daughter left, that was not an easy thing. So she planned new activities. She made new friends. She planned a trip to New York for what she called retail therapy with her younger daughter. She lives about 4 hours away. And so on a fairly regular basis, maybe every 6 weeks or so, she would go to New York. And again, she didn't have to spend a lot of money. It wasn't like buying big stuff. She didn't have a lot of money, but it was, going with her younger daughter, visiting New York, going over to, the various, things to see and do. But it was something she could always look forward to. With her other older daughter and their family, because she's a grandma, she offered to have a weekly Sunday night appetizers with them, and she would either bring them to their house if it was too much for them to get in the car and come over. They live in the same city, but all of a sudden Sunday nights became really key, and the older daughter and her husband and the grandkids loved Sunday nights. Okay. She had to deal with a few ghosts from her past, issues that she had not dealt with because of her busyness. Even the death of her marriage, so to speak, she'd kind of buried some of that. So she actually went and got some counseling, and it really, really helped her. So see, what I'm saying is new experiences with the kids, but it's probably a very important time for you to have some new and fresh experiences as well. Now, principle number 2, so celebrate this as a rite of passage. When your kids are little, they have rites of passages. When your kids become, adults, they have rites of passages, but you also are having a rite of passage. So celebrate this rite of passage, embrace the positive change, because there is some positive stuff. Yeah, it's time to create new habits and new adventures with less clutter. That's kind of my phrase. Okay. I mean, I need to clean out the closet that I have. Well, Kathy has 3 parts of it, and I have 1, but still, I need to clean mine out. I need to clean out my T-shirt drawer. Those aren't the important things, though. I need to also declutter life. You may need to declutter life, and so that's the kind of thing we do. We embrace it. It's a rite of passage. Maybe I know a guy who got off a board. He was on a board, and his kids were not now involved in this, same activity, and so he loved his time there, but it was time for him to move on. So the question you have to ask is, what will it take for you to thrive in the empty nest? Small change equals amazing outcomes. So again, you don't have to make major changes. Sometimes you do. I know a woman who went back and became a therapist. She had always wanted to go to school. She had always wanted to be a counselor. So she went back to school. That's a big change for her, right? But sometimes small changes equal amazing outcomes. So baby steps over a long time equals change. So take time to declutter. Now is the time to get rid of some of the stuff, both physically and emotionally. I love what Peter Drucker said. He said, first things first, last things not at all. One of the things that Kathy and I did when we became empty nesters, and by the way, it boomeranged. We had 8 boomerangs of 3 kids, coming back into our house because of school or money or needs or, whatever it was, COVID. But anyway, we kind of created what I call a dream on list. So we kind of created this bucket list. And I remember this was done some time ago. And it's been years that we created the bucket list. And it wasn't just travel. It was spiritual, mental health, dreaming on with our adult kids. And some of it was travel. Like we just went past year, to Sicily. And we wrote that down like 10 years ago that we wanted to one day go, rent a car, drive around Sicily, eat a lot of Italian food. And we had a blast. It was so good, but it was something that we looked forward to. So for some of you, maybe it is creating kind of what we'll call a dream on list. But again, it doesn't just have to be about travel. Spiritual, there's people who join small groups. There's people who join support groups. There's people who decide to read through the Bible, whatever it might be, do that. Refill the empty nest, sure, but slowly, because you've got a lot more time now. And we can fill it with just stuff or more, gazing at social media or things that are kind of a waste of time. Or we can actually, quietly, slowly, put some good things into our life. Okay. Listen, I'm going to get to principle number 3. It's about your empty nest marriage. I also realize that there's a lot of single empty nesters who listen to this podcast, watch it on YouTube. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're talking about finding joy in the empty nest. It's a Just Jim podcast. Rarely we do these, but we do them periodically. The book is called Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. We've got a course. We've got talks. You can bring people out like me or others to your church. We'll give you a great seminar on finding joy in the empty nest or doing life with your adult children. Lots of good things at HomeWord. So go to homeword.com. You can learn so much more. But right now we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with principle number 3 about your marriage. Okay? Don't go away. I'm Jim Burns. You're listening to HomeWord. Hi, Jim Burns here. I am so excited about what's going on at HomeWord. Some of you are just learning that things are changing around here. And one of the most exciting things changing is our new president, Marcus. And Marcus, tell us what's going on with HomeWord.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. So excited to share with you, give you a glimpse of what God is doing in this new season at HomeWord. And it's a blend. It's a blend of new and tried and true. And our mission right now is, how do we take these 4 decades, these 40 years of ministry, of resources, of principles that God has been changing lives throughout the nation and beyond, and expand that, but also tether it to a younger generation. And the way we're going to do that is through a blend of tried and true resources and principles and events, as well as new initiatives. And I'll start off with the new. On the new side, we have a new website. We are rebranding. We've got new staff. We've got new faces and new voices to our growing social media presence, and that is wonderful. But also on the tried and true side, we've got a Refreshing Your Marriage retreat that has been an amazing, impactful event. We've got our conferences like Trainer for Trainers, and our resources like our books that we're going to continue to write and expand and change lives. Speaking of which, Jim, share with us the latest update of what's going on in the book world here at HomeWord.
You got it. And I'm excited about your leadership, and I'm excited about where we're going at HomeWord. It's going to be pretty incredible. We've got a book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. We have other books, of course, but that's still on the bestseller list after 5 years. Even this month, it's on the bestseller list. And now there's a new one that's going to be coming out called When Your Adult Child Strays, trading heartache for hope. And I'm doing this book right now, and there's going to be a course with it. And we have other books on sexuality and things like that that are really, really making a difference all around this world.
So with all the things going on right now at HomeWord, here's what you can do. God is putting in our heart this desire and this plan to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference that I recently attended, and it helped my wife and I have a breakthrough that God was working in our hearts for a while. But beyond that, I saw other couples experiencing the same thing. So we are going to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference, take it to other cities, and we want to be able to not only help make sure that happens, but also those that can't afford it, that need to be resourced and some scholarships. So we want to make sure nobody misses out on a chance to get their marriage refreshed and to draw closer to the Lord. So I'm asking you to make a special gift above and beyond to support that. Thank you so much, HomeWord.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. We're talking today about finding joy in the empty nest. It's a Just Jim podcast. And so you got me. And some people love this. I mean, in fact, people write us and say, do more Just Jim. I'm kind of keeping it to every few months. But I do like this too. It's fun to kind of give you some input. But it's also, I love interviewing guests because I'm really curious about a lot of subjects. And I love we try to bring in the best family ministry people in the world, and we do. And so, gosh, it's a learning experience for me every time. This time you're stuck with Just Jim. I hope that's okay. You can also catch us on the YouTube channel. If you're not watching this on YouTube, we've got HomeWord has a YouTube channel. All the past podcasts are there. And so check us out. And always on every podcast, you can check us out in our show notes as well. And these show notes will tell you about finding joy in the empty nest, all the cool things that we do at HomeWord that way. Okay, let's get back. Principle number 3, finding joy in the empty nest. Your empty nest marriage. Let's talk about that. Midlife is about staying in love by falling in love again. That doesn't mean you're all out of love, but life gets busy and marriages turn stale. And sometimes we bury things under the mat because we're so busy with our kids. So now you're officially in the second half of your life. And guess what? You're in the second half of your marriage, probably. Maybe not, because there's blended families and all kinds of things going on. But here's the deal. Most games are won in the second half. Isn't that interesting when you think about it? I mean, there's a foundation that you've been building, but most games are won in the second half. A marriage at midlife is about staying in love by many times falling in love again. It doesn't mean that you're out of love, but falling deeper in love. I think that's what happened to Kathy and me. It wasn't like we hated each other. It just was, this is the time to engage, put some energy into it, put more work into this. So not long after we began the empty nest, we took a trip up the coast. We live in Southern California, and we took long walks and fun food. Yeah, there was more romance because kids weren't around. And we realized that we really needed to be intentional about our marriage. And so maybe it's time for you to take a look, get proactive, and be intentional about your marriage. This is what we know about marriages, especially marriages in the empty nest, is that if you're intentional, you're going to thrive, you're going to find more joy. One woman said to me, the kids are gone, the house is quiet, and we're dating again. And like she had a big, broad smile on her face. Cool. I'm glad she did that. So now's the perfect time to reboot your relationship. So for you, no matter where you're at in your relationship, some people thrive in the empty nest. They just love it. Some people go, you know what? We thought this was going to be a lot better, and it's not. We're at the mall looking for soft yogurt, mumbling, when are the kids going to call? And they never call, right? That's actually from a movie. But you kind of do that. Or you go, no, we're going to do something about this. So don't put it off. What does your empty nest need? What's holding you back? I love this phrase, untended fires soon become nothing but a pile of ashes. So you got to tend the fire within you, because even people who have kind of lost that loving feeling, they honestly can tend the fire. It comes back, and it really does come back if you'll work on it. But you got to work on it, okay? When I ask people what are they doing to tend the fire, I get all kinds of things. Weekly dates, more romance, counseling, taking a class together. I know a couple took a photography class together. Long walks. I've got two friends who were struggling in their marriage. They spent thousands of dollars going to what they call an intensive. It was then called the National Institute of Marriage. It's now a great, it's just any intensive you can go to on marriage is great if your marriage is in trouble. They went, and I said to them, how did it go? They go, oh, it's great. And then they talked about the food, and they talked about being in a small group, and they talked about their counselor. They actually, most of these intensive have 2 sets of counselors that kind of meet with you, and it's an intense 4 days. Not cheap, but it's awesome. It's great. And I said, well, what was the high point? They both said the same thing. They said, we decided we would take a walk after dinner together whenever we can. And I went, that's the high point? And they said, yeah, we're efficient. So one of us would do the dishes and one of us would walk the dog. And then the next night, the other would walk the dog and the other would do the dishes. We decided in this that we could both walk the dog. We could both do dishes. It would take us almost the same amount of time, and we'd actually get some connection time. And so these have been really good connection times. And I thought to myself, they spent like $6,000 on this thing. And I'm like, I could have told them that for nothing, right? So again, it might be as simple as, changing your habits. Kathy and I walk. We really do a lot of that. We live at the coast. We live at the beach, Dana Point, California. So you'll catch us walking our golden retriever, sometimes at night, sometimes in the morning, other times. And really, it's a connection time for us. And I miss that if I'm traveling or if we haven't done that for a while. And so do that. Some people say it's coffee dates. Some people say planning a dream list, whatever it might be. But I guess what I want to say in the empty nest, as I'm focusing on your marriage, is fireworks have nothing on friendship. Put energy into your friendship. Sure. Romance, rekindle romance. That's a big thing. If you know me, I talk a lot about that. But also work on your friendship. I love this movie. It's an old movie. I actually saw it with my grandmother when I was young. It's called Shenandoah. Most of you probably don't remember this movie, but what happened in the movie was a young man asked the father of the father's daughter for his hand in boy. So there's a movie. It's called Shenandoah. I saw it with my grandma. It's an old movie, but I love this one scene in it. Most of you probably didn't watch it. A young man came up to the father of the girl he was dating, and he wanted to ask the father for the blessing of marrying his daughter. And so he said, I'm requesting, back in the old days, it was kind of real present. I'm requesting, that you allow me to marry your daughter, on and on. And the guy says this, do you like my daughter? And the young man said, well, I love your daughter. He said, I didn't ask that. He said, loving her is not good enough. I asked, do you like her? And there really is a difference between love and like. Now, obviously, you want somebody to love your adult child or whatever in marriage. But it's interesting that the like part is important too. No doubt, passion and romance are part of every marriage, right? They better be. But authorities tell us that over 80% of couples in successful marriages report that they are best friends. So again, you may not be best friends, and hopefully you have other best friends with more same-sex type marriages. That's my situation. I've been in a small group for 23 years, and we're best friends. And I'm a better husband because of that. But I want Kathy to be my best friend as well. And the way we do that is to put energy into that. You feel accepted with friends. There's both physical intimacy, but there's also emotional intimacy. What I have found is that I've got to work on my attitude, my tone, the atmosphere. So John Gottman is a marriage authority, and he has something that he calls the magic ratio. What he says is for every 5 positive interactions, 1 negative interaction can work. So that's what he calls the magic ratio. If you have more positive interactions than negative interactions, you're going to do a lot better. If you have 1-to-1, he says you're on your way to a divorce. Well, a lot of times people have gotten stuck in their marriages, and when they become people who are in the empty nest, they can put some more time in that. So, staying with this idea of friendship and being purposeful, I always say doing things together is sexy. Okay. I don't know if that sounds like weird to you, but it is. Be purposeful about creating connection with your spouse so you don't drift. And again, walk together, find a hobby together, join a small group at church together, join a club. Kathy and I like all the same stuff. We like the beach. We like long walks. We like paddleboarding. We like to travel. So what's kept us going, and we always say when we talk about marriage that we have a high maintenance marriage, 51 years of it, by the way. But for us, it's putting energy into the relationship. And that's very, very key, and it makes it easier. Not perfect, but it makes it easier. I wrote a book a while back called Having Serious Fun. and 12 other principles for making your life count. Having fun together is a prerequisite for connecting. Now, so I'm not just talking about marriage in that book, but with marriage, if you have fun together, if you play together, you stay together. It builds memories. It reduces stress. It opens up closed spirit. So the question you want to ask in your empty nest marriages, what can you do together that's fun? A lot of people say, we don't have fun together anymore. So if you can't think of anything, then go out to dinner and make a list of 10 things that you could do together and do them. We challenge people to have a weekly date night. I ask people all the time, would you be willing to give 1% of your time to your marriage? And like, who's not going to do that? So yeah, I'll give 1% of my time. Great. That's 90 minutes. So go on a date. Okay. And then it's about communication. Every great love story is a never-ending conversation. So good conversation and communication, by the way, it's a learned trait. You don't just come upon it. It's a learned trait. And there are times when I feel like I have to work on communication because I speak, I write, I'm with people all day. And so what happens is when I get home, sometimes I just want to be quiet. And yet, Kathy sees good conversation and good communication as a form of emotional intimacy. So I've got to work on that. She needs to work on it. She's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. So there are times when she needs her space. Take the space. She needs that space. That builds her up. At the same time, there are times where we have to have that, kind of continuing conversation that's not just all about the bills or the kids or the problems with this or that. See? So in the empty nest, you're going to either recover from some of those bad habits or you're going to repeat them. So recover. Okay. Ask open-ended questions. Do what it takes to make your life more meaningful when it comes to this. I mean, what do you want to be doing 3 years from now? It's a great question. Dream vacation spots. Yesterday, I brought up with Kathy, I said, it's time for us to talk about vacation for next year. I mean, this is, early in the season. We're not even close to next summer. But I said, I think it's time to talk about it. And she kind of looked at me, rolled her eyes and went, well, we can do that later. So I got the straight arm, but I've now opened up that conversation. So maybe she'll think about it. Okay. The other thing about your marriage in the empty nest is every marriage has a soul. So what I say in that is nurture it, nurture the soul. One of the ways you can do that, because I think the least when you look at intimacy, the least developed area of intimacy for a lot of couples is spiritual intimacy. And for Kathy and I, we've had to nurture that. It doesn't come natural to us. And yet we're both Christians and we both are in leadership and we're both in ministry. But for us to develop spiritual intimacy together did not come natural. We were talking to some mentors one time and we said, what do you guys do to have spiritual compatibility, spiritual intimacy? And the guy said, we spend 20 minutes a week. And the bubble in my head kind of went, 20 minutes a week? How wimpy. You're a Christian leader. What do you mean you only spend 20 minutes a week? We're not doing that, but it's all a bubble in my head. And I listened to, well, what do you do? And we read scripture. We oftentimes read something kind of, inspirational. We pray together. And again, none of that sounded all that exciting, but it didn't sound bad either. I mean, that's what I do with people sometimes. So as we're driving out of the driveway, we had talked mainly about our kids that night with our mentors. Kathy said, I want to do that time. I want to do that spiritual thing. We ended up calling it our closer time. And I'm challenging people today to spend 20 minutes a week in closer time. And we actually have a book called Closer. And you don't need to buy the book because really when people write us, and we get more stuff on Closer than almost any other book, and we wrote it together, but people just say 20 minutes a week has changed our life as we come together. And no one ever says it's the most amazing thing, but when it comes to your book, but again, what they say is, no, we connected. That's a beautiful thing. And so we challenge people to do that. You might want to, do that. For us, we read Closer, we wrote it, but we now, have passed on from Closer, and we'll read something inspirational. We'll pray together as often as we can, but always that 20-minute time where we can kind of really get down. And Kathy says it's even emotionally healthy. It's physically intimate in her mind. So again, do something like that. That's a great idea. And then also rekindle romance. One person said, we are moving our sex life from the back burner to the front, and it looks different with changing libidos. I wrote that down after they told me that because I just think that's true. Your libido, as you get older, may change. Life may change, but that doesn't mean that you have to quit focusing on it. In fact, a lot of people say it's the best time in their life. Okay. And then one last principle, I won't talk about it very long, but do whatever it takes to make your top priorities your top priority. Here's the phrase. It's the most important phrase in that book, Finding Joy in the Empty Nest, in my opinion. Significance and a well-lived life are not accidental. So how do you want to leave a legacy? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Well, it's not going to just happen. So you've got to put energy into this. And how you can do that, I actually take this out of Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. You can read that later, but it's an incredible scripture. But we do it by learning from others. In the book, in the Bible, it says a cloud of witnesses, but learn from others, have people around you. Run light. In that scripture, it says run with perseverance, but run light. Throw off everything that hinders. And when you do that, when you run lighter, you have more time and energy to succeed in the empty nest. Run with perseverance. So it's going to take some grit. If you're in a troubled marriage right now, all studies show that if you stay in the marriage, if you persevere, your marriage will be better off 5 years from now. Stay in the marriage. Don't think that the grass is greener someplace else. Keep your eyes on the prize. The Bible said, fix your eyes on Jesus. He is your true north. Okay. Stay engaged with your own soul. Use your gifts to serve and make a difference in the empty nest. And sometimes you can do that together. Anyway, connect with the life-transforming role of mentoring. Now that you're older, I'm not looking at you as old. The average person goes into the empty nest at age 50, so that's kind of like the new 40. So, you still got a lot of life in you. But begin to mentor others. And as you mentor others, and if you mentor people younger in their marriages or younger with kids, you're going to make a huge difference in their life. And guess what? It makes a difference in your life. Learn to age with grace and wisdom. Some people don't do that. They get harsher. They get more bitter. That's because they're not working on their stuff. So work on their stuff. It's in the preparation that helps you finish well. So really, finding joy in the empty nest is making a decision to finish well. And you can do that. And yet it's going to take some time and some energy. And again, if HomeWord can help you, please don't hesitate to pick up the book, Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. Again, the subtitle, I like the subtitle, Discover Purpose and Passion in the Next Phase of Your Life, because every life is a phase. Anyway, just Jim talking about finding joy in the empty nest. A joy to be with you. Thank you for listening. Even those of you who aren't in the empty nest yet, I have a feeling that what I had to say may be even as important to you as you prepare for the empty nest. So until next time, you've been listening to HomeWord, or you're watching on our YouTube channel. It is a privilege to be with you. Please subscribe, like. The more subscribers we get, the more people who like, the more influence we have. And we have this influence going on all over the world. And we're so honored that you would take time, especially on these Just Gems, that you actually just listened to me for this long of time. Anyway, blessings to you. Have a great week. Talk to you next week.